Hey guys, my name is Eric, and today we're going to be talking about the Dead Air Sandman-X suppressor. Let's go ahead and roll the intro. Hey guys, thanks for checking out another Hatchet Cast episode. Today we're going to be talking about the Dead Air Sandman-X 30 cal suppressor. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. And also, if you are thinking about getting a suppressor or you're looking at the Sandman-X, make sure you share this video with a friend. It's a great way to support the channel. If you are looking to support the channel in other ways, you can go check out BARRELHATCHET.com, where we have our training schedule, where you can come train with me. And it's always a great time to go out and train with you guys, meet you guys, and also have fellowship while we all work on skills together. Now, before we get started, I want to do a quick shout out to the channel sponsors who make this type of content possible for you guys so you can watch it for free. And that first one I'm going to do a product spotlight for is a very well-known sponsor of the channel, and that is Wetworks. Wetworks is a company based out of Texas, as you guys know, and they make really high quality tactical nylon equipment. And so one of the product spotlights I want to talk about is the Wraith Viper Hood or Cobra Hood. This thing is built for being lightweight. It's really good for breaking up your silhouette. For those who don't know, one of the things that really gives you away in an environment is the head and shoulders. And so they actually have a lightweight Viper Hood system that also has 3D cut leaves, and it has the base layer is also 3D cut. And you can have a hood that is big enough to be able to wear over top of your helmet while you're running night vision. A lot of Cobra hoods out there, and I'm a big advocate for really economically priced ones that you can get on Amazon and just spray painting them so that way it gets rid of that shine. But the problem is their hoods are not big enough to also fit a helmet. And so, obviously I'm wearing plate carrier. Typically I'd be wearing a helmet for this type of setup and want that Viper Hood to go over top of the helmet to also break up that head and shoulders. Wetworks has done that. They made the hood really big. It also has a clip buckle here in the center, and it has really cool hand coverings over here that I can actually take off, and I can still operate my equipment, but I can tuck it if I don't really want to use that. So really cool product. They have a ton of other different products that are on the website that you can go check out, and they have been really diligent about supporting the channel and the work that we do here. So make sure you go check out Wetworks. Now, another product spotlight I want to talk about is our other sponsor, and that is RMA. Now, RMA has actually provided some level 4 plates in this plate carrier that I'm wearing right now from Wetworks, and they have really lightweight level 4s for a really decent price. They're an American-based company. They make everything here in the States, and the multi-curve system that they have on most of their plates, they've also designed a women's multi-curve plate. So if you're a female or you know somebody that's going to get body armor that's a female, they actually have specially designed plates for females. So they have level 3, level 4, all different types of body armor. You can go see the description in this video and go check out different body armor systems they have. They also have a lot of name brand plate carriers like Cry Precision, so it's not like some off brand from China or something kind of chintzy like that. They have really good quality products, and they're really big about making sure that every citizen is outfitted with affordable and high quality body armor. So special thanks to RMA for sponsoring this video. Now, before I get into this, the way that I'm gonna break this down is first by giving a disclaimer. Dead Air reached out to me last year at the end of the year and asked if I would want to do a review on the Sandman-X. So they did send this out for testing and review. There are a lot of channels that posted a really quick turnaround video on the suppressor, but I really wanted to give it a run for its money, because there are certain things that I was looking for besides just how quiet and the sound and the tone and all those things were, right? So those are things that are covered on a lot of other channels, and if you want to go see the super in detail specs about that type of thing, you can go check out a lot of other channels that have that data. But there is something very specific that I was wanting to see with this type of suppressor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the specs really quick, and then I'm going to talk about the qualities of low back pressure suppressors and what you can expect from these types of systems, and then what did Dead Air do to try to mitigate some of the issues with low back pressure suppressors in general. So I'm going to talk about that and also my experiences with the suppressor. So real quick, let's go ahead and jump right into the specs. So as far as the most important thing that everybody's thinking about is price point. So what is the price point for this? MSRP from Dead Air is $999, so $1,000. Depending on what model you get, whether you have your different adapter, it could be $1,059. So relatively good price point for a low back pressure suppressor. Usually these things are pretty pricey in the industry, and they really knocked it out of the park when it came to price. As far as the weight, depending on what type of configuration you have, it could weigh from 14.5 ounces all the way up to 16.8 ounces. As far as the hole diameter, it's a 30 cal diameter. They do sell end caps that have a 30 cal size hole. They also sent a couple of end caps that have a 5.56 caliber size hole. Now, the end caps are removable. They have different types of options as well for that if you're really into the different end caps. They have a flash hider model that they sent for me, just because it's going to be important for what I talk about later in the video. As far as the material, it is made out of Haynes 282, and you can get it in black or FDE. When it comes to the rating, it's full auto rated as per usual, as expected, and it has the ability to mount a chemo or a xeno adapter. So if you have a lot of chemo devices, you can go ahead and get the chemo model, or if you want to run xeno, it's on a taper mount, you can get that model as well. What is nice, kind of circling back to the weight, is this is not going to weigh more than a traditional style suppressor. In fact, it's going to be lighter. In terms of the predecessor, the original Sandman actually weighs 17.7 ounces, and even in the heavier configuration, this only weighs 16.8. So it's still lighter weight than the traditional Sandman that was out there previously. As far as the features of this can, this is a 3D printed suppressor. And I think there's a lot more companies nowadays that are really getting into this new technology. I think it is the future. It's how we move forward, and they do actually have a finish on the outside. So some of your 3D suppressors that come from other companies do not have a finish. They decided to finish the outside of it, which I think is a nice touch. And it has some of the characteristics as the original Sandman with the grip texture here. Now, whenever you do get this, you do get two tools, so that way you can remove the hub adapter and you can put on whatever hub, Xeno or chemo. And they also give you a tool to be able to remove. You also have the ability, like I said before, to remove the end cap. On this, because it's low back pressure, there are vents on the very front of the suppressor to be able to kind of mitigate some of that gas that you get in your face. And so I'm kind of jumping into this right now already, but let's go ahead and just really see what are the qualities and characteristics of a low back pressure suppressor system. Now, as far as low back pressure systems, let's talk about the pros of low back pressure suppressors. One very big pro is you get less gas in your face, and that's one of the original intents for low back pressure cans. So if you're a lefty, like I am, a southpaw, having gas in your face really sucks, especially long term, because if you shoot indoors or you have a really overgassed gun, you're inhaling all those chemicals that come, the carbon, the lubricants, all of that stuff is going right into your face. And even if you are a normal-handed shooter, which I'm sorry, but if you're a normal-handed shooter, you're still going to eat that gas depending on how overgassed your gun is. So low back pressure is supposed to help mitigate some of that and allow more of that gas to escape out the front of the suppressor versus coming out through the chamber. I think we all pretty much know this. It's pretty self-explanatory. The other thing is, because it's a low back pressure system, it's going to be a lot easier on your parts in terms of wear and tear in the long run. So if I have an overgassed gun, right, like I buy something from Daniel Defense and it's a Mark 18, and I run that, which they're known to be overgassed, and then I add a traditional suppressor onto that, like an RC2, it is going to be even more overgassed, increasing the pressure at the end, that coming back to the end user, and now it's going to have a higher recoil, it's going to be more wear and tear on parts, it's just going to be overall beating the gun apart, especially if the gun itself is not gassed properly and it's overgassed. And some people say, well, what's the big deal about overgassed guns? Nothing. I mean, your gun's going to run. It's going to be very, very reliable because it's going to be running really hard. The only difference is that you can gas guns really well. And I'm actually planning a video about builders versus buying from the factory, and how you know, getting a gun from a builder. They build it with all the parts that you like, but they really do a good job of making sure everything is, you know, perfectly fit, flush, that there's no excess gas leakage or overgassing. It's just done right. And I've been running really well gas guns from like Griffin Armament. You know, that's from a factory, but they put extra QC and time to make sure the gun is gassed properly. So when it's suppressed or unsuppressed, it's super soft, and you can get a lot faster splits. You can get more rounds on target. They made it really well, so it's super reliable. But you can have a really well-tuned system. So if you have an overgas system, then a low back pressure can is going to provide even more benefit, because it's going to not wear and tear those parts as hard by running a can on it. Depending on how much low back pressure attributes are on the can, you can actually reduce the recoil on those overgas systems, which is really nice. And when I did the Mark 18 Rise 3, it was a perfect example of being able to regulate a gun with a low back pressure suppressor. The other thing also is 3D printed suppressors and low back pressure is the next evolution of suppressor technology. And so that is a pro, because there's so much that you can do with it. They can get very, very intricate on the designs. They can it's honestly up to your imagination. Long gone are the days of using a traditional welded baffle system. Now they can have all these little designs in it for, you know, venting gas this way and venting gas the other way to make it, you know, have higher dwell time and mitigate the flash, all these things. This is an attribute that we see with low back pressure and 3D printed suppressors. It's the future. Now, what are some of the cons with low back pressure suppressors that matter for me? It depends, like I said, on what you're trying to get out of a can. What are the cons when it comes to low back pressure suppressors? Well, my first thing is, it depends on what you want out of a can. All right, these cons are dictated by things that really matter to the end user. So if you don't care about these cons, then low back pressure suppressors, a majority of them, are going to be great. They're going to do all the pros that you want. If you're going to be shooting competition and you don't care about these items, then it really doesn't matter. So, but if you do care about things that I'm about to talk about, then this is something that you have to really consider when it comes to low back pressure suppressors. Now, mind you, most of your traditional suppressors, because they're not releasing all that gas out the front, are not going to have these issues, and will in fact have what I look for, which is a smaller signature. So I want to have a suppressor that is low back pressure to have a relatively small signature within that category. And so comparing this Dead Air Sandman-X in terms of what's important to me, which is signature, is something that I was really looking for with this can. Now, when it comes to signature, there's two things that I'm looking for. One is how much flash is there going to be coming out of this can. When it comes to all low back pressure suppressors, you're going to have more flash traditionally than you would with a standard suppressor, because I'm letting more gas escape out the front. So I was saying, not how much signature does this have in comparison to a normal can, how much signature does it have in comparison to other low back pressure systems. The other thing I'm looking for is how fast does this thing start to heat up and really glow, especially if I'm trying to hide from night vision. You know, whenever you shoot cans, that can starts to glow, and that glow gives off signature, so it's easier to find under IR. If it starts glowing super hot, you might be able to see it with the naked eye. So how much does it glow? How much flash is coming out, or sparks and signature is coming out visually from the end of the suppressor? And then also, what is the sound and the tone like in terms of signature? Does it sound like the shot is louder? Does it have a deeper tone, a better tone? So that way it kind of disperses that shot and makes it a little bit more difficult to figure out where the shot came from. These are all the things that I was looking for, and this is what I'm going to talk about when it came to my experience with the Sandman-X. The only other suppressor that I've done that's a low back pressure suppressor can is from Huxworks, and I did the Huxworks 556 Ti video. You can go check that video out. So I had nothing else to really compare it to. I did have the RC3 to compare it to from my previous experiment with that and seeing how well it did. And so that's what I was pitting this against to see as far as the signature, how big the signature was or how little the signature was. You know, I was working with my buddy Andrew from Heritage Firearms, which a special shout out to Andrew from Heritage Firearms. If you're in Mississippi, they've got a shop, it's a family-owned business. Go check them out, really good people. And also he helped me out with some of the testing for this. When it comes to the signature, this had a much more significant lower signature, a lot less flash than the HUXWRX 556 Ti. So one of the things that we would look for is, yes, you're gonna have some sparks at the end. So I was like, hey, what I wanna look for is I wanna look for the base flame that comes out the end of the flash hider. And if it has a acceptable amount of sparks, like just not overbearing, then that's what we're looking for. So we shot the HUXWRX 556 Ti and there was a bigger flame. It had a lot more sparks, a lot more volume coming out of the front. It does have better low back pressure qualities. And so that could be why. Part of me was wondering if it's metal or something that's coming out, because there's just so many sparks that were coming out the end of that HUXWRX Ti suppressor. This did not have even a quarter of that. In fact, when we were shooting this and doing the signature test, I would count every single shot that Andrew would do. I'm like, all right, hey, 1, 2, we're do 6-round test. And I kept miscounting because there would be times I'd be recording under the night vision camera and there was not even a single flash at all. In fact, you could see the discoloration of the gas that was coming out, but there was no light. So as far as the signature, extremely low. Not an excessive amount of sparks that were coming out, and almost a very negligible, tiny little flash at the base of the flash hider. That was really important for me, and that was honestly shocking. I remember when we were talking about it that night, I was like, dude, I couldn't even see anything. I miscounted because there was no flash that came out of the can, which for a low back pressure system, that is a big deal. Having the ability to have all those pros of the low back pressure, which I keep saying over and over, and have a lower signature, that is it's like a perfect world. Now, mind you, if you are looking specifically from a recoil reduction aspect or a way low back pressure characteristic for your suppressor, then this part doesn't really matter if you don't care about the signature. But like I said, for everybody else that's a prepared citizen training for a reason that is more real world, that's a big deal. When it came to the sound also, I had the 30 cal end cap on this and I didn't even remove it. It sounded so great running this suppressor with the 30 cal end cap with 556. It was so quiet, relatively quiet. So it had a lower or a very, very good, even in a traditional suppressor standpoint, sound signature, a really good tone. Really hard to hear downrange, like if you were going to be shot at, like where that shot's coming from, it really dispersed it very, very well. And so from signature perspective, in a real world application, dude, this thing was very surprising. This is my first dead air can I've ever owned. And so, I mean, there was in the past, Roy, when he was on the channel, was running a Sandman-K, and it's a shorter version, and after about 2,000 rounds, he did have massive flames. That's a traditional style can. Had massive flames coming out the end of it, and we don't know what it was. It could have been a fluke, but that was my only impression of Sandman suppressors. When I was, looking to do a review on this, I was like, maybe they fixed it, and they did. This thing was insane. And in fact, I really love the Chemo mounting system as a QD option. Really nice. It has a ratchet, it goes onto a taper mount. So what I was also looking for was the POI shift and the accuracy. And I ran this on a 5.56, on a 11.5, I ran it on a 12.5, ran it on a 14.5, ran it on a AK from Heritage Firearms that was a Wazer 10, ran it on a 6.5 Creedmoor, ran it on a 308 bolt gun, which is actually this one right here for the Build-A-Sniper video, and it performed outstanding. Very, very consistent. Didn't have any drastic changes in POI shift and accuracy. So overall, I've been very, very happy and surprised with the quality. I think it's really good to see when companies are working towards making things better, listening to end user feedback and be like, okay, what do we need to change? Let's take some of these feedback points and make improvements and make something better, which is good. That's what we should expect from companies. Every company, no matter what, even Barrel and Hatchet, will make mistakes. The key is what do you do with those mistakes to move forward, pave your way forward, and listen to the end user and take that feedback? And also, how good do you take care of your customer? These are things that we as a community should be looking at and encouraging for companies in the industry. And those companies that do that, like Dead Air, will do very well because they have gained the trust of the shooter. Total round count on this can between 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, 5.56, and 7.62x3.9 is close to 2,500 rounds, almost pushing maybe close to 3,000. Just the Ruger alone, when I was doing the 6.5 Creedmoor video, had 500 rounds on 6.5. So there's a heavy amount of round count on this, and you guys can actually see just how durable it is and how much wear and tear happens on this bad boy. So I did not hold anything back. And you know, one of the things I love about Dead Air is they're like, hey, give us your solid opinion, what you actually think, the good, the bad, the ugly, and let us know. And that type of transparency is something that we should be happy to see with companies. Now with this, I am very excited to see how it does long term. One of the things that I had concerns about with low back pressure systems that were 3D printed in the long run was going to be durability and also longevity, because all those small tiny grooves will eventually fill in with carbon. When it comes to 5.56 or higher pressure calibers, you're not going to have to worry about that as much, because that higher pressure round is going to be breaking a lot of that carbon off. But if you're going to run a lot of 300 blackout or something of that nature, a lot of subsonic stuff, it might be a good idea to kind of check on those grooves and make sure that you still have that. You'll probably start losing some of the low back pressure qualities that you had originally in the can once you run it a lot. If you're going to be running multiple different calibers and you want to have a low back pressure suppressor, I would be very comfortable in saying that I would recommend this type of can. Especially, and I have to harp on this point because it's really important for me and what I look for, the signature is really good for a low back pressure system. And in general, honestly, even a standard suppressor, this had lower signature than some traditional suppressors. Having the ability, if you guys decide to get a 30 cal suppressor, and I'm really glad that they made this in 30 cal, is if you are getting to your first can, you can put this on multiple platforms. I ran this, like I said, on all those different platforms: 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, 300 blackout, 5.56, 7.62x3.9. All of these different calibers were able to run on this can no problem, and it was good sound, tone, signature, all of it on every system and every caliber that I ran it on. You know, there's a lot of people, especially in the prepared citizen space, that have kind of waited and not really pulled the trigger on low back pressure cans because they have a higher signature or have a tendency to have more signature, more flash, and so they'll stick with something traditional like an RC2 or something of that nature. But now it has finally arrived. I can say after thousands of rounds going through this with multiple different calibers, Dead Air has done it. They have made a low back pressure suppressor that has a really good low signature, great tone, great sound, and very good consistency when it comes to accuracy. So hopefully you guys got something out of that video. I have been having a blast reviewing this as a lefty. For shooting gas guns, I had very minimal to almost no gas in my face. Hear a lot about signature and being able to run it on multiple calibers with tone, accuracy, and all those types of things. The Sandman-X might be a good fit for you. So special thanks to Dead Air for trusting me with reviewing this suppressor. They also just hit 10 years, so congratulations to them. They celebrated that at SHOT Show. I'm really excited to see what Dead Air produces here in the future. So I'm gonna go and give it to Eric for an encouraging word. All right, guys, so hopefully you got something out of that. And you know, if it's useful, make sure you share it with a friend. But we are in a very special time of the year, and it's one of my favorite times of the year because it's a great reminder of a message of hope, and that is Easter. We are in the Easter season. And so, you know, for the end of this video, I want to talk about kind of the mission set that God had when he came to the earth. You know, I had always been confused about this. I thought, oh, well, God just came so that way we could get a ticket to heaven, and you know, he wants us to be good people and to be happy and all this stuff. Or maybe, you know, I used to think this, but like God's always judging me, like I'm never good enough and things of that nature. And I'm just, you know, it's always, every time I go to church, it's a sign of how far I am from the Lord and all this type of stuff. And so when I was reading, you know, John chapter 3, verse 16, which is the one verse that we all know because it's the one you learn in Sunday school when you're 5, I didn't read the follow-on verse, and it gave so much context, and I think it's important to talk about this Easter season. And so John chapter 3, says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." Now, verse 17, it has the context verse. "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." That is what Easter's about. That is what God came to do. He came here to die for our sins, to restore the relationship. It was a rescue mission to restore the relationship with us. That relationship had been severed by sin and evil, and God was like, I have to come back and restore that. And the only way to do that is someone has to pay the price for that sin. And that was something that he said, I will bear that burden. I will do that because I love Eric so much. I love you who are watching so much that when he was hanging on the cross and he was taking that beating and he was being nailed to the cross, it was worth it. You were worth it. He was thinking of you when he was being nailed to the cross. He was thinking of me when he was receiving those lashes. And in his mind, he thinks, it is worth the sacrifice. It is worth it because that's how badly I want a relationship with you and me. That's how badly he wants that relationship. It was all worth it in the end. And that is something that we just don't understand. It's hard to comprehend, like sacrificing that much just to restore a relationship with somebody. But Jesus is the source of love, and he was on a rescue mission to restore the relationship back again with humanity. And he did it for you. And so for those who are not believers, I want you to know that Jesus loves you. And no matter what you're going through, whether it's a hard time, a really dark chapter of your life, you're not alone. Jesus is in the room there with you. He died for you. He thought of you. He loves you. And if you are going through anything, make sure you email me at team@barrelhatchet.com. I'd love to pray for you, or comment your prayer request in this video. And there's a believer in the community that would love to pray for you. And if you are a Christian and you are remembering this Easter season, and so for those of my fellow believers who are out there, who have a relationship and been saved by the Lord, I give you this challenge, as it says in Romans chapter 1, verse 16 and 17. "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. For in the gospel the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith." And my challenge to all of us is to continue to be bold and tell people who are lost and going through some of the darkest chapters in life, to provide them the message of hope that Jesus brings, that he provided to us on the cross. And so one day when we reach the end of our lives, I reach the end of my life, I can confidently say this verse, which is in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7 and 8. "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing." Guys, make sure you are looking out for each other. All we have is each other, this community. And whether you're going through a hard time, or you're curious about who God is, make sure you download this Bible app. You can scan the QR code right here and it will bring you to the Bible app. It's completely free. And if you have any questions, or you're going through a hard time, or maybe you're not a believer and you just want to talk to somebody, email me at team@barrelhatchet.com. We got to be here for each other. So guys, train to be the eternal asset. My name is Eric, and I'll see you on the next one. Happy Easter.